Welcome, everyone, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John. We've got Alan Lichter and Dr. Barry Hobbs right now, and more people are going to be joining in, as you know. And we're at the last page of D.D. Palmer's The Moral and Religious Duty of a Chiropractor, that chapter in the Chiropractor written in 1914 or compiled in 1914. I'm going to start with this extremely powerful statement, this paragraph that stands alone by D.D. Palmer, midway through the page of page 11. And here we go. The spiritual intelligence controls unintelligent matter through the nervous system. Each and every portion of the body is permeated by the spirit and its means of communication. Okay. I mean, that's like a 33 principle just waiting to happen right there. And I think it's just a powerful statement of the animator within, right? You guys, what do you guys feel? You know,
it's so deep, it's hard to even talk about.
It's so deep, and it's 2 lines of wowness, you know? I'm going to read it again. The spiritual intelligence controls unintelligent matter through the nervous system. Each and every portion of the body is permeated by the spirit and its means of communication, because we don't really know how it communicates. And I think one of the most amazing things in the body is the synapse, the space between in that communication. That's the space between Adam and God and Michelangelo's painting, you know. It's just amazing. And, you know, still we have the communication of spirit. What do you guys feel?
Well, I think it's fascinating that he talks about unintelligent matter, that the matter itself, although organized, is unintelligent, although it's maintained by universal intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And the spiritual intelligence controls unintelligent matter through the nervous system. So then it moves it, allows it to function in its appropriate way. And I want to be sure that we pay attention to that we're not lost in the history of purely nervous communication in the body, that there's, now they talk about, and I forget the terminology, but there's, you know, that some of the communication in the system is sonic, not just electronic, chemical along the nerve system.
Oh, you know, go ahead, Barry.
This I remember this paragraph from last week, and it's coincidence that we start off with this, and it bothered me that he said unintelligent matter, and that really that came up several times in my thought patterns and flashes this past week, and here we are talking about it. I understand what he's saying. The spirit brings the intelligence, the adaptability to it. However, I thought there is intelligence and universal intelligence in all matter. And that's the paradox that bothered me.
Well, that's what Stevenson brought into this statement, right? When he's bringing in, you know, universal intelligence is in all things. But, and, you know, when he's talking about unintelligent, I think he's really talking about intellectual intelligence, right? Or something that's not able to take care of itself or reproduce.
Yeah.
I follow you, Barry.
Yeah, and it's the, you know, this, we know this, guys, right? The paradoxes of life are everywhere. And we're picking this apart. However, this stood with me. And also, when you look at all these paragraphs on the pages here, I know people listening can't see this, but this is where I'm also thinking these are part of the notes and things that are put together here. Irregardless, I know what he's saying. It's, yeah, that's my point.
Okay, so I see your
point. But the matter, sorry.
Go ahead.
The matter, the organization into matter is certainly also controlled by that universal intelligence. That the individual atoms, if you will, are still organized, and but then I wonder if each and every portion of the body is permeated by the spirit, and its means of communication is saying that he's talking about in a living being, potentially speaking here in terms of a living being, and that the matter of the individual portions that make up our bodies are unintelligent until the intelligence moves them.
I follow
The
that.
the spiritual intelligence controls unintelligent matter. Controls.
But then what
Interesting.
I'm saying is in the next sentence, he says, each and every portion of the body is permeated by the spirit and its means of communication. So is he talking here about in a human body, the matter itself is unintelligent, but controlled by.
Maybe the tone. Right.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. Got it. Thanks. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Stevie.
I think those two sentences go together that way.
Yeah.
You know, just talking about tone is, you know, your vibration is holding all these little things that can't think on their own into Barry and into Alan, into Haig. And, you know, it takes that spirit permeating all things to change the shape enough, because we have the same atoms within us, but change the shape and their configuration of the molecules to make it look like you and make it look like me and make it look like Alan. I'm in awe of those things, really. It's just like, it's so absolutely mind-boggling that it's so far beyond the mind, really, you know, of trying to understand those things. Just like, you know, we talk about every week, really just how amazing this body is. All functional acts are performed by the involuntary nerves. They direct organic life. The voluntary are those under the control of the human will. They look after the environment, that which supports and constitutes animal life. Yeah, that's innate, right? Here comes Carol. Let me let her in. Yeah, to me, that's sort of a description of innate, running the involuntary stuff. You know, and if we think about the animal world, lives much more innately. They're looking for food, shelter, you know, reproduction more than, and, you know, I personally feel a lot of us are looking for spiritual growth. Hi, Carol, how's it going?
Good, how we going?
We're on page
Oh, yeah.
11.
Okay, page 11. Okay, sorry, we're late. Okay, I was talking to my granddaughter.
You're on page 11, and
Okay,
I
I
think
got
they just had boards at Sherman.
Oh yeah, she had part 2 on Saturday.
Ay, ay,
Yeah. Bring back
Nice.
memories.
Oh, it's like, it's PTSD I got from it, let me tell you.
Really good. And then she's got part 3 next month, the 18th of March.
Good for her, getting it
Well,
done.
she figured just get over it, you know.
Absolutely.
I think
You know,
when I
then
did it, there were only 2 parts.
Yeah, right. That's when Rob had it. Now, and then they have part 4, I think, in November.
And then they have to take PT board. I'm literally
Yeah,
fighting.
she's gonna take that, even though it's not required. I told her to take it.
You take it now, because you might have to take
Yeah.
it if you want to practice in Florida. I'll hire her. But
Yeah.
you know, all these, it's crazy that we have to jump through these hoops, and none of those things relate to what Dee Palmer's saying in here. You better
No.
take a PT board to be a chiropractor.
It says it right there on page 10. Now
Is
stop
that on page 10? I've been looking for it. Thanks for the quote.
Tone, that's PT,
Well,
right?
Rob did a lot
Muscle
of
tone.
international, so
Oh, I bet
he
he
could
did.
teach you. Oh yeah, he did a lot. I remember they had like a whole, you know, building of, you know, physical therapy. That's what I thought chiropractic was when, you know, he was going. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, I know. I know.
He was putting people on machines and everything.
Well, we had a good time with Melissa. We had a lot of fun at our workshop.
Oh yeah. She had a great time. Yeah.
Yes,
She
she
did
did.
great. She on Monday did something, I guess, that you taught her. Because she had a pregnant woman who had the baby, so the baby just came in. So
Nice. Awesome.
yeah, she got credit for the baby because I told her, I said, many pregnant women come in and they do not bring the kid. Right?
She
I
brought the
mean,
baby, yeah.
you know, so she convinced her to, you know, talk to her and explained it. So I said, well, I think you should get credit for a new patient.
Yeah. And then she get it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
yeah.
for her.
I was going to call Jack up and say, you know, I'm yanking my kid.
Like, come on, Jack.
I'm yanking her. The 11th quarter, you're still in life. Forget you.
All right, we're at the
Okay.
middle of the page. Alan,
Okay.
you want to read a little bit? Mike,
Sure, I'm good.
go ahead.
There are two series of ganglia, nerve centers, lying along each side to the front of the vertebral column, reaching from the occiput to the coccyx, fibers of which extend into the cranial, the thoracic, the abdominal, and the pelvic cavities. These communicating nerve branches connect the vertebral chains to the various organs, vessels, and viscera. There are 144 or more nerve centers, sympathetic nerve ganglia, designated by physiologists as so many brains differing in size, color, texture, functions, location, and more especially in the impulses received and distributed. The controlling intelligence is everywhere present, manifesting through the nervous system its desires for advancement, making use of these nerve centers as receiving and distributing stations.
Now, a desire for advancement. This goes back to what we're learning on this plane, we're taking to the next to help them grow. Pasquale used to say, they need us, meaning our spiritual guides, spiritual friends, as much as we need them. And Dee Dee's going into that.
There's a repeating, this is a theme that's been throughout this whole section about the advancement that's allowed by in each of us.
Yeah. And
as a whole, as a species and other species for that matter.
And in a spiritual realm outside of these species, we're talking about spirit. And, this chiropractic is so much bigger than, like we just talk about taking this PT board and all the boards. It's none of that teaches this. This is the mission. It makes chiropractic so much bigger than we can even perceive. That's where Dee Dee's going with this. Whether you believe that in your thought patterns of spirituality or religion, this is what he's saying about it. I think it's poignant, and it may be his notes. I think it's a little more than his notes, though.
Yeah, these are very scientific here. I like this scientist in Dee Dee. He's dropping the ganglia, nerve centers, and 144. There's 144 joints in the spine, and he's saying or more. He's talking about the sympathetic. This is really, this is early 1900s, and this is how scientific Dee Dee knew his stuff. And before that, he was talking about the organic life and animal life, the biology of it. And he collected all these specimens and species and antlers and skeletons and just studied life, biology. And here he is putting it together in the human spine, like a neurologist, like a medical doctor. He's in those books.
Well, by this time, he had studied probably more about human physiology and especially the spine than probably any other human on earth. I mean, he had studied everybody's research and really compiled things and came up with his own. I mean, his collection was top notch on the planet, just of spines, right?
Yep. Spines and literature.
And literature.
And animal skeletons. I forget what you call it. Anthropology. I forget. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was top notch in the world, really, by then, D.D. Palmer was.
His collections are in the Smithsonian.
Is that right? I didn't know that. We all need to take a trip and see Alan and go to the Smithsonian and see D.D. Palmer's collection.
I don't know if is that someplace we can actually go and see it?
No.
Probably.
And or if it's out or if it's not.
Yeah, it's probably
not on display.
The archive someplace.
Yeah. The moose antlers, remember Heg, the big moose antlers behind him? Those were extremely famous. And he had a bunch of them stacked up behind him too. Antlers of different types. And then of course, this is the challenge. Dee Dee had this brain, but he when he got this money from the schools, he went out and bought and spent on his collection. And he would buy these collections. And then BJ was 16 years old at the time when he came back, and he had the sense of like getting it together. So there was that juggle of Dee Dee leaving town dropping this off to BJ, but I know this book is DD in California. But yeah, this is the scientists in DD dropping all this here. And we, sometimes I even forget how prolific he was at those other topics.
I mean, he put in the research, he put in the time, put in the effort way before he delivered it to us in 1895. He said in here, it was in this one or the last one, he spent 9 years researching this before he delivered that first adjustment. It wasn't by happenstance or by mistake. He delivered in the right time, in the right moment. Okay, should we keep going?
I'm ready. The founder of chiropractic has located the spirit in man, found its abiding place to be throughout the entire body, a position from which each and every nerve ganglia may be used for receiving and forwarding impulses. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. There's a lot of meat in that one too. I mean, like just taking a moment.
He's saying
it's everywhere. What were you going to say, Alan?
No, that's what I was going to say. That the founder of chiropractic has located the spirit in man, found its abiding place to be throughout the entire body, a position from which each and every nerve ganglia may be used for receiving and forwarding impulses, so that that intelligence is global within each of us. It's not just in our brain. It's not just in our little toe. It's everywhere in between, and in every follicle of our hair. And I'll stroke the beard with that one.
Well, that's what he's saying. Where's the kingdom of heaven? Where is God? Where is it? We're trying to think about it, intellectualize it. And guess what? It's all of it, right? Everywhere. Yeah. All right. Should we keep going? You want to finish it up?
Therefore, inasmuch as the light of life was revealed to me in order that I should enlighten the world, and as our physical health and the intellectual progress of the personified portion of the universal intelligence depend upon the proper alignment of the skeletal frame, I feel it my right and bound duty to replace any displaced portion thereof, so that our physical and spiritual faculties may be fully and normally expressed, thereby not only enhancing our present condition, but making ourselves the better prepared to enter the next stage of existence, to which this earthly existence is but a preliminary, a preparatory step.
I mean, that's another
Can
one.
I get an amen?
Amen. Amen. You got it. Amen. And, spiritual faculties that may be fully and normally expressed, I mean, to be really into creating this realm into the next stage of existence, to which earthly existence is but preliminary and a preparatory step. So we've got to be cleansed through this period to be able to prepare ourselves for the next one.
Well, and the physical health and intellectual progress of the personified portion of the universal intelligence depend upon proper alignment of the skeletal frame. That the physical, that this is talking about the same thing, that what he's repeated over and over, the desires for advancement, that the intellectual progress of the personified portion that's within each of us of the universal intelligence depend upon the proper alignment of the skeletal frame. Then when we adjust people, we allow that full expression of the universal within and the advancement of ourselves and everything around us.
I'm making marks on this thing of what I've got to copy and put onto my for talks and in innate adjusting, because it's so poignant. And I've read this so many times, and I have to say, I don't think I've gotten as much out of it as I have this time. And each time I've had such a profound, moment reading this chapter. And, he's said this over and over again, to ignore it in our profession of, preparing us for the next step. and our intellectual life towards our spiritual life. It is important. Go ahead, Barry.
We were talking about this earlier. Didi is still 100 years ahead of his time now.
Oh.
This is therefore more, inasmuch as the light of life was revealed to me in order. And this is amazing. And I like how he says the bounden duty, not bound duty, the bounden duty. These old English words that I'm not used to, but they're powerful. You can feel them. This intensity, it's he's humble about it, yet he's documenting this, and it still reminds me this is still way ahead of his time. The skeletal framework needs to be in integrity, and also mentally, a human being, we know this, when you're in integrity, life happens, the energy happens, the synapse happens. You're going with natural law, you're not going against it. And he's talking about this personification of the universal intelligence in the skeletal frame, and I'm picturing that touching this marble blue planet, because this is an earthly existence, but it's a preliminary, a preparatory step. What an orator Didi was. Love it.
I wish I could have been in the room hearing him. I really just wish I could. We don't have recordings of Didi. They weren't recording back then, and it's a pity. But
and I like the where you started there too, Barry, about the fact that he's done a lot of work to get to this point. And so he feels he has a right to do what he's doing, but more than that, because of the knowledge, because of his awareness of the spiritual component of universal intelligence, he's bound, he has a bound duty to help replace the displaced portion. That he's obligated. That's the moral and religious duty of the chiropractor is the title of this chapter. And this is where he lays it on the line. He says, I'm bound to this duty because of what I know.
Yeah. And he had
and we know it because of him.
Yeah. I mean,
we have the same bound responsibility.
Has there been anybody as passionate as D.D. Palmer or B.J. Palmer? I mean, go ahead.
No, this and also at this time when Didi taught this, so this is we can feel the spirit in him right now. And when he finally was teaching chiropractic, it was, we think of the Palmer School, but when he was first doing the diplomas, you would get chiropractic, but you could also teach it. So then that's why there's 500 schools in the early 1900s. There were those limited schools, but at the beginning, the diplomas were you would receive chiropractic and then teach it, because it was this spiritual, this personified little niche that he had gotten a hold of and then was passing it off to BJ. And these other students, and Salon Langworthy was the one who really was advertising across the country. And so at the beginning, that's why there's all these schools. And the spirit of chiropractic blew up in the early 1900s, because a lot of people think, where's that energy? Where's that spirit? You had people like this teaching you and then telling you, go back to your community and teach it and spread it. Who were his students? Mostly MDs. MDs back then really didn't go to medical school. They had internships. They had, it was, the school was limited. And I mean, look how powerful this is.
Yeah.
The challenge we have, and I'm talking about us here, is that it seems to have been distilled over time or diluted over time, I guess is the word I want. You had Didi, you had BJ, you had Fred Barge and those people of that ilk, and you had Sid, and and I'll include Guy and Felicia for the moment, Joe Strauss, but where are we today? Who is out there? You've got all these people teaching business practices and adjusting techniques, but who's talking about the core that we're reading about here today? That's one of the challenges of our profession. And hey, you're probably one of them out there when you're teaching your class.
And I think I'll give you credit.
I want to acknowledge you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Because it isn't being taught. And this is where it's taught, this is, we directly quote from here because people need to read it. How many students have this book? Very few. It's not an easy one to get. Now it's been republished, but it hasn't been in the past. Let's read this last paragraph. You want to read the last one, Alan?
Sure, happy to. By correcting these displacements of osseous tissue, the tension frame of the nervous system, I claim that I am rendering obedience, adoration, and honor to the all-wise spiritual intelligence, as well as a service to the segmented individual portions thereof, a duty I owe to both God and mankind. In accordance with this aim and end, the Constitution of the United States and the statutes personal of California confer upon me and all persons of chiropractic faith the inalienable right to practice our religion without restraint or hindrance.
Okay. Now, he said it at the end where he said, I don't claim to make this a religion, but he does it in the middle at the end down here. One thing I'm going to come back on a month tomorrow. I'm going to tell my people, I'm like, hey, welcome, segmented individual portion thereof. God, I segmented portion.
That's, this is clearly, what later became universal and innate in the discussion.
Yeah. Hey, I believe he's talking about this right now because in California, they went the religious route. And I believe it was 1909 or 1906. So the religious route was the route of chiropractic at that time. So I believe that's why he's stating that.
And in the beginning, he starts at the beginning and the end, stating California law.
Yeah.
If you can do this, I can do that. If you can do that, I can do this. And we need to. So yes, absolutely. It's, this was probably a little bit earlier than 1913, but, absolutely.
I like the line in there where he says, I'm rendering obedience, adoration, and honor to the all-wise spiritual intelligence, as well as a service to the segmented individual portions thereof, the human beings I'm putting my hands on.
Yeah. It's what I always say, we're stepping up to an altar. That's what's happening when we step to that table. We're an altar. There might be the individual expression right there, and that individual expression is of God. And honoring each one of these people as you're stepping up to an altar. That's what really, teaching service really should be, not just a musculoskeletal dysfunction, right? There's a big difference to that. Instead of treating the problem or caring for the individual expression of God within each person. Anybody else?
That's very poignant to say, Hag, and it's so true because when you listen to these classics, the Santos, the Sids, they talk about that. Look at that other person as a spiritual being, and here you are currently saying this, and here we are reading Didi, and it's true when you are truly in that spirit, that oneness of the all-wise, the mighty, we're all one energy, results happen, transformation happens.
There's something extra happens.
Ripples, right,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
We've been trying to quantify that something extra for a really long time, and really this is it. This is really how. It's not extra pixie dust. It's not more torque. It's really is, the beauty of honoring that being and the holiness of, spirit of God. And, I guess, was it Bruce Lipton that said, he was an atheist until he read D.D. Palmer's book, and then he believed and knew there was a God. I might be misquoting that, but it's either this book or the 1910 book.
When you're really talking about, and this is a challenge for us humans, you're really talking about being present.
Yeah.
Be present. And I heard this over the weekend. Did anybody come to D.D. Palmer with low back pain? No, he was a magnetic healer. He was a spiritualist. He was a pure chiropractor, the fountainhead of it. People came to him to have their health transformed. And most of them, of course, had organic organ problems when they approached him. But nobody came to him with just low back pain, visceral pain. Not at all. This is the power of him.
You know, we've come such a long way on this, and I know we took our time to read these 12 pages. You realize we're on page 12. We did most of it last week, but it deserves the time and reverence to take our time to digest it. We're going to do the rest of this book. We'll probably be a little bit faster at it, but there's a lot of good information here, and some of it is textbook stuff, and that's understandable. And we're good at skipping things when we need to. And after we finish this book, I think it's a good idea if we go to the 33 principles. So we finish this chapter, and then we're going to finish the rest of the book. But I really, if you all want to, but I think going into the 33 again with brand new eyes would be a very good thing. And we're mostly translated of the last one, I think, and then we have the translation from this one we're going to do into Spanish, and then eventually I'll get them into Portuguese. But we're going to get we have all of these ones into Spanish. I'm just trying to organize them before I post them, and which that could be in a week or it might be in more than a week, but we're going to get to it. And this is for the ages, and it's for the people. Someone asked me, hey, what do you get out of this? And I said, well, I learned, like, let me tell you, nobody's paying me. The last thing YouTube do, they're taking my videos down. They're not paying us a cent. And this is out of love for chiropractic and for the love of people that are going to receive chiropractic in the future. And so we're just about at the end of that. We'll get to it. And then, we're really going to have a lot happening. I think the 33 principles, we're going to get a lot out of. Anybody have any input right now? Anything else?
There was something dancing through my brain, but it ran away.
Well, I'll go through my announcements. All right. April 15th.
Christian, I see Christian has a hand up. Is that intentionally? Did you need something to say, or is that?
His hand's not up.
Oh, I see a hand on the screen. Well, that's
So,
mine. Never mind.
April 15th, we're having here in Melbourne, Florida, it's Heal the Healer. And everybody's invited. We're having, it's general public too, Heal the Healer. July 22nd, innate adjusting workshops in Spartanburg. Okay. And that's very important. Or excuse me. Yeah. July 22nd is innate adjusting in Spartanburg. And September at the fall break, it's Life University and Sherman have the same time as fall break. We're doing an innate mission trip to Haiti. Okay. And part of really doing 2 seminars before then is and someone asked me this today, I said, because I need to shed and clear myself for that mission. And I'm going to invite other people to come. So we're going to do some healing workshops. We're going to do, our innate adjusting to get prepared for the September mission trip. And we're doing that with Peter Morgan. He's invited us to do an innate adjusting and Chiro missions seminar together and mission together. So we're going to have a lot of fun doing that. And it would be great to have some seasoned docs and everyone out there. We're going to have time to share and to grow and experience while we're doing it. And this time we're going to be staying in hotel rooms and not in a monastery or in a hut or on the floor. We get to sleep in a bed. Okay, the nice one. That's a big deal in missions. I've been doing mission trips for 20 years. So those are my announcements, and I hope everybody can join me. And I think I don't have a code for the innate adjusting discount, but I'll have that for us later on. If you guys are interested, just message me. And we have a lot of friends in Europe that asked about it. And so Europe can go. We're working on getting continuing education for it. So we'll see how all that goes. So innate mission, Haiti, September. All right. Everything's covered with the fees. You just have to get your plane ticket there and all that stuff. Anyway, I love you guys.
Good night.
Tidbits. Good night, Steve. Great to see you. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Toodaloo. And I'll see you soon.
Good night, everyone. Have a great week.
See you
Good
next week.
night.